Mukam karoti vachalam pangam nangrayate tatkri yatkripa tadam vande shikarom dinatarnam Umahyana Mandasya Chanamsla Shlaka Shakshurmetam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthana Srimate Bhaktivedanta Sb. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Srinyavadi Paskachai Dasatarana Prabhupada. This morning we will discuss Canto 10, Chapter 21, Text 12 to 14. So we start with reading Text 12. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jyamudiyayat Nastve Sabatvesu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavata Tamaspi Bhakti Bhakti Sb. Krishna Meriksha Vanitotsafarupa Silam Shudva Satat Vanitavem Viviktagita Devyo Vimana Kataya Smaranam Nasara Pashat Prasuna Kabarama Maho Vinivya. Translation. Krishna's beauty and character create a festival for all women. Indeed, when the demigods' wives flying in airplanes with their husbands catch sight of him and hear his resonant flute song, their hearts are shaken by Cupid, and they become so bewildered that the flowers fall out of their hair and their belt loosen. The purple. In Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada comments. This verse indicates that the transcendental sound of the flute of Krishna extended to all corners of the universe. Also, it is significant that the gopis knew about the different kinds of airplanes flying in the sky. In fact, even while sitting on the laps of their demigod husbands, the demigoddesses became agitated by hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. Thus the gopis thought that they themselves should not be blamed for their ecstatic conjugal attraction for Krishna, who after all was a cowherd boy from their own village and thus a natural object of their love. If even demigoddesses became mad after Krishna, how could poor earthly cowherd girls from Krishna's own village avoid having their hearts completely conquered by his loving glances and the sounds of his flute? The gopis also considered that the demigods, although noting their wives' attraction to Krishna, did not become envious. The demigods are actually very refined in culture and intelligence, and therefore when flying in their airplanes they regularly take their wives along to see Krishna. The gopis thought our husbands, on the other hand, are envious. Therefore even the inferior deer are better off than we, and the demigoddesses are also very fortunate, whereas we poor human beings in an intermediate position are most unfortunate. So we are aware of the mood of the gopis. So they say, how can we become blamed for being disturbed? The deer become disturbed. that they are looking at Krishna with their loving glances, and the demigoddesses even were used to the most high musical performances, they become disturbed. So Sridhar Swami comments on this verse. Sridhar Swami said, another gopi spoke, "O gopis, hear this wonderful thing. The demigoddesses were traveling along on airplanes upon seeing Krishna, whose beauty is Rupa Sila, and creates a festival for all women. The way he is dealing and the sweet words that he speaks, and hearing the unrestrained song of the flute played by him, even while seating on the laps, the demigods, their husbands, agitated within their hearts by Cupids, in other words, their inebriety, their chastity, their gravity, all became shaken, and they are overcome and bewildered." So, the symptoms of this bewilderment. What happens? The external manifestation of the bewilderment are stated by the gopis. Flowers tied into their hair start falling, and their bells were loosened. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's comment on verse 12. So, one gopi said, "Since we are ordinary gopis, and Krishna is a gopa from our village, our conjugal attraction for him is natural. Though he is appearing among human beings, even the demigoddesses become mad after Krishna. Then what is so astonishing that we, poor earthly women, become completely conquered by Krishna's love, by Krishna's love-laden glances and the nectar of his flute? Seeing the exquisite form and sterling qualities of Krishna, Rupa Sila, heavenly women become blissful, Vanita Utsava. Their hearts become overcome with conjugal desires, Mara Namasara. The flowers fall from their hair, and it becomes undone, and their bells loosen, Vinivya. Then they faint, Momoho, and fall from the laps of their husbands while flying in the sky in their airplanes, Vimana Gataya. So the bewildered celestial damsels depicted here are showing the symptoms of an ecstatic transformation, Anubhav, known as Motayita. When a heroine sees, remembers, or hears the word of the hero, Krishna, or the words of the hero, Krishna, lusty desires are aroused in her heart, and she hankers for his association. This is a state of Motayita. Then a gopi said, the intelligent demigods, although noting the condition of their wives, do not become envious, rather, thinking themselves most fortunate, They regularly take their wives along to see Krishna in Vrindavan, but our husbands are envious. Thus the low-born deer and the high-born wives of the demigods are very fortunate. But we poor humans in an intermediate position are the most unfortunate. So they are the most, effectively they are the most fortunate, but they are feeling themselves the most unfortunate. The most fortunate are feeling themselves unfortunate. It takes lives of cultivation to see Krishna everywhere. We need to take shelter of these five most potent items of devotional service. Then we do our service depending on Krishna, understanding that we are actually not qualified, so we depend on His mercy. Let's see what Sanatana Goswami says on this verse. What to speak of the glories of those who live in Vrindavan near Krishna? How can one describe the good fortune of those flying in the sky? They see Krishna, He who attracts the heart with a form of natural qualities, giving joy to women suitable to cause anuraga in them. They hear a song with pure raga vivicta, or indicating madhurya ras, sounded by his flute. They came suddenly in their airplanes with their husbands, since they were not suitable for direct association with Krishna. They were constantly afflicted with desire for him by seeing him, since it is mentioned that they saw his form. Their enchantment was further enhanced by hearing the song of his flute. Or whenever they saw him, at that time they became bewildered. Seeing and hearing were both causes of bewilderment. The actual order should be first hearing and then seeing. When this happens, they are not able to descend from their airplanes and approach Krishna because of their bewilderment. This is Anubhav. This is the Anubhav, and which Anubhav? It's called Motaita. And then Sanatana Goswami quotes a verse. Gantasmarana vartado rititat bhavavavita prakatyam abhilasasya mottaitam udiryate. Mottaita refers to the appearance of a desire in the heart, from the arousal of the staiva, from remembering or hearing about the beloved. The staiva, our constitutional position, is our fixed relationship with Krishna. So the staiva is Mother Yasoda's parental love is taking care of Krishna, and that will continue overruling everything. But by absorbing in this staiva, it gives rise to motaita, appearing desire in the heart to be with Krishna, to serve him. And the staiva that comes from remembering or hearing about the beloved. Well, the desire in the heart appears from that, from remembering and hearing that So the staiba of nectar devotion is constant, never interrupted. That like udipan causes things that come and go. So we are most unfortunate for not having seen the astonishing ocean of all auspiciousness, who bewilders the foolish female deer and the most intelligent wives of Devatas. Or we are most unfortunate for not seeing him as he wanders in the forest, whereas they are fortunate. But we have also, let's see, Jiva Goswami. Yeah, he repeats mostly Sanatana Goswami. Yeah, always it's the same, but it's not the same, because he gives certain details. Like he says, they see Krishna, who attracts the heart with a form and other qualities, giving joy to women suitable to cause anurag in them. They hear a song with pure raga, Victor, or indicating Madhurya Ras sounded by his flute. They came suddenly in their airplanes with their husbands, since they were not suitable for direct association with Krishna. They were constantly afflicted with the desire for him by seeing him. So that's the result of this taiba, since it is mentioned that they saw his form. Their enchantment was further enhanced by hearing the song of his flute. Or whenever they saw him at that time, they became bewildered. Seeing and hearing were both causes of bewilderment. No. The rest is the same as Sanatana Goswami. So let's now first go to the Venu Gita. So there, Shivaram writes, Srila Prabhupada's translation and additional commentary in this verse in Krishna book is more expressive. In translating Krishnam Niriksha Vanitotsava Rupa Silam, he writes, Krishna is so nicely dressed that he appears to be the impetus to various kinds of ceremonies held by the women folk. The Vrajavasis regularly perform traditional ceremony as part of their rural lifestyle. Srila Prabhupada states that the incentive for women to participate in these festivals is to see Krishna present there in his various mind-enchanting attire. Srila Prabhupada speaks about festivals organized to see Krishna. That he writes, the inhabitants of Vrindavan naturally dress in very colorful traditional costumes. When they participate in some festival, they dress even more exclusive. And Krishna, as the son of their king, adorned with his natural ornament of beauty and character, stands out among them all. The gopis who love Krishna with their hearts attend to his functions, just to see him dressed in different ceremonial costumes. In this way their love and happiness increases manifold, and the thirst of their eyes and hearts becomes satiated. Then different festivals are described. Then text 13. no purport. Kavasa Krishna Mukhanir Katavenu Gita Piyu Samutta Bitakarana Putai Pipanta Savasnuta Stanapaya Kavala Smatastu Govindamatmanirisha Sukala Prashantya. Using their ears as vessels, the cows are drinking the nectar of the flute song flowing out of Krishna's mouth. The calves, their mouths full of milk from their mothers' moist nipples, stand still, and they take Govinda within themselves through their tear-filled eyes and embrace him within their hearts. So this verse describes the effect of the flute and of seeing Krishna by the cows and the calves. So now we hear about the cows and the calves. In the next verse we will hear about the birds. This is how the cows react on Krishna's flute. The cows, they put their ears up, and they can move their ears in different directions. We can do that. They can move their ears, but they move their ears and make them ears wide as cups for drinking the sound of the flute. So they put their ears up. Uttabita karna. Karna, the ear, is highly raised, their ears. That not to miss anything of the sound of this flute. So the cows see Krishna within their minds. Krishna is touching them in their heart. This is the effect of the flute playing of Krishna. Of course, the cows feel very attracted to Krishna. We know that of the day of Gopastami, Nanda Maharaj said, because until then they just take Krishna and the cowboys, they took care of the calves. But then, from that day on, they would take care of the cows, the big cows. And Nanda Maharaj said to Krishna, "Oh, you are so small and this cow is so big. How will you be able to control them?" And Krishna was at one side of the pasture ground, and slowly he was walking to the other part of the pasture ground. While he was walking, all the cows were following him. And when he came at the end of the pasture ground, he came back, and again all the cows were following him. And then Nanda Maharaj said, all right, they will listen to you. You can take care of the big cows. Of course, Krishna is called Govinda. He got his name Govinda at the time of the Abhishek by Indra. We will see that later. Sridhar Swami, he says, the cows were drinking the sound of the flute, Uttabita Karna, with the vessels of their ears, which were held high out of fear that one drop of music might spill, that they might miss it. So when you have a very valuable liquid being poured then you are careful not to have any of it spill. This is how the cows treated the sound of Krishna's flute, as the most valuable, and they left their cups high, they lifted their cups high. They were fearful that they would miss a drop. Similarly, the cows as well. They were engaged in drinking milk from their mothers, and suddenly they heard the song of the flute. And drinking that nectar with their high-held ear vessels, they stood still. They stood still, simply keeping in their mouths the morsels of milk which had already flowed from their mother's breast. In other words, they forgot themselves. They forgot who they were, completely absorbed in the sound vibration. They forgot everything, and they just stood there with the milk of their mothers dripping down from their mouths. The cows and calves, their eyes were filled with tears, like also the eyes of the gopis. Okay, you go hear what Sanatana Goswami says in this text 13. Four verses describe the words of another gopi, describing cows, birds, rivers, clouds, or one can explain the verse as a continuation of what was previously written. In other words, as the verses proceed, lesser and lesser individuals are gradually described. Though there should be nothing inferior in Braj to the women from heaven or spiritual objects, flute or dam, because of the colourless emotions of prema, they make these verses by selecting certain details to express their misfortune. There is good fortune for all exalted women of heaven. Thus there is also good fortune for the animals, the humans and cows who can see Krishna. Thus now cows are described. The word Cha means but. Previously Krishna's moon-like face was described as full of nectar. By mentioning his face, nectar is suggested. Krishna has a form of highest bliss, therefore there is nectar flowing from the flute song, emanating from his moon-like face. Sva indicates astonishment or certainty. They simply stand stunned, overcome by sattvika bhavs. Govinda indicates their master, Lord of the cows. The cows touch him with affection. Even though the calves were with him, the milk stopped flowing from their udders, and even though they had grass in their mouths, they did not chew or swallow, but simply stood there. Savasnuta stana pai kavala. The accepted version of Sava. Milk comes from their udders. Snuta stana paya. Out of affection for the Lord as a calf, with grass in their mouths, the cows remain stunned. This is the accepted version. Taking the word Sava to make a separate statement, the meaning is, from some of the calves' mouths the milk coming from their mothers flowed out, whereas other calves' mouths have grass in their mouths, kavala, which they had been chewing. The cows embrace Govinda in their mind, via their eyes, or they offer themselves to Govinda in their minds. Since they cannot see him directly, since their eyes are raining kala with tears. Since their eyes are covered with tears, they seem in their minds. All the cows remain standing, touching Govinda by licking him, using their eyes, Dvisa. We are most unfortunate since we cannot touch him, the gopis think. The dear and heavenly women heard the flute and saw his form. The cows, simply on hearing the flute, developed love. That is the difference between them, indicated by the word Sa. This is Sanatana Goswami. Jiva Goswami says the same. But now look at Vishwanath. Text 13. A gopi said, one cannot say that the bewilderment from Krishna's flute song is generated from the conjugal desire of ladies only, gopis and devis. Even dumb animals like cows and their calves are affected by the nectar of Krishna's flute. In fear of spilling the nectar, the cows have raised their ears like cups to hear the sweet sound of Krishna's flute. The cause of the cow's bewilderment is not just their vatsalya bhav, parental love towards Krishna, because their cows which are devoid of vatsalya bhav are also bewildered. The cows have just drunk their mother's milk, perk up their tears to drink the nectar of Krishna's flute as soon as they hear it. Then they stop sucking their mother's nipples. The milk falls from their open mouths and they stand as if stunned. The cows stand still as they take Govinda within their hearts through their tear-filled eyes and embrace him out of vatsalya bhav, motherly affection. In this way, all living entities have unalloyed pure love for Krishna and are fortunate because they can meet Krishna. Only we are unfortunate because of separation from him. That now can read from the Venu Gita, Shiva Ramaraj, page 250. So for the Vrajavasis, the cows are their sole means of livelihood. From his 900,000 cows, Nanda Maharaj obtains an unlimited ocean of milk, which provides his clan with their staple foodstuffs and a prime commodity for barter. In this way, the Gopas have become incomparably rich, their opulence dwarfing the heavenly kingdom of Indra. Sri Krishna's pastimes of herding cows is eternal sport. Daily he indulges in play with his friends, kills the occasional demon, and meets the gopis in a secluded place. Although the details of these amusements vary, in principle they are ever recurring and follow a transcendental routine. After rising in the early morning, lotus-eyed Sri Krishna will be attended by his servants, who perform their scheduled services like washing his lotus face. While Mother Yasoda fusses over him, a mustached cowherd man entered the room and says, "O Govinda, protector of the cows, O Pasupati Hari, the most qualified of cowards, fail to milk our restless cows, and the cows will not drink a drop of milk due to their sorrow. Your mothers are looking down the road with tear-filled eyes, licking the calves and filling the directions with their mooing. Restless and unhappy, they are unable to tolerate another moment without you. You just hear their pitiful cries. Sri Krishna immediately jumps to his feet. His camphor-like smile indicating his own happiness. Accompanied by Balaram and Madhumangala, Gopal hastens down the gold-paved road to ankle bells on his feet, singing sweetly, his intoxicating fragrance pervading all directions. As he approaches the vicinity of the Gosal, the anxious cows, aware of his arrival, low with exuberance, stamping their hooves and shaking their heads. When he enters the barn, along with Balaram, the curious demigods see Govinda like a black bee among white lotus flowers, and Haladar like an Airavata elephant among the great boulders of Kailash. Their first faces turned upward. The cows low in chorus at his appearance, and Govinda returns their show of love with his transcendental smile. Each cow perceives Sri Krishna to be looking at her alone, and at whatever distance they stand, each feels him to be by her side. Moving their rear legs, the mothers eagerly desire Sri Krishna to milk them, scratch their heads, or speak some affectionate words. Until they have this morning darshan, cows of Vraj will not be milked, nor feed their hungry cows. So great is their love for Govinda. Although the cows live in opulence, excelling that of the greatest of demigods, without the comforting presence of Sri Krishna, they see their palatial barns as drab and void, while their comfortable residential quarters have walls of crystal roofs fashioned from jewels, roof beams hewn by emerald, the tall pillars cast in gold, and many cornices carved of ruby. Their great opulence is the loving glance of Gopal. With his regular patronage and the tender care of Nanda's cowherd man, the cows and cows live there in great happiness. Surrounding the barn are innumerable cows' pens enclosed with decoratively carved fences festooned with flowering vines, strings of pearls, and cloth ribbons. Beyond them stretch the vast meadows of Vrindavan like a multi-hued sea of green swaying gracefully in the gentle breezes from the Yamuna. Everywhere are scattered blue, gold and pink flowers, and occasional banyan tree towering against the turquoise sky provided ample shade for the grazing cows. The whole area is softened by scattered cow dung powder, which increases the sanctity of the charming atmosphere. At some places there are heaps of cow's dung as high as mountains. At other places, cow dung patties are stacked like the many peaks of the Himalayas. The majestic bulls of Vraj wander here and there like liberated souls, sometimes fighting each other for cows, sometimes peacefully grazing on grass, at all the times absorbed in thoughts of Govinda. While singing the glories of Sri Krishna, innumerable young gopis collect cow dung, and elderly gopis sit in circles, making them into large patties. Their song and laughter settle like a nectarian dew of the pasture and saturate the grass with an ever sweeter taste. Many wealthy Vrajavasis walk here and there dressed in fine silk, decorative turbans and golden ornaments. They speak among themselves of the heroic deeds of Hari and glorify the good fortune of the king and queen of Vraj. What pious deeds did Nanda, Baba and Yasodi Devi perform to be blessed by such a son? So that gives you an idea of the lives of the cows in Vrindavan and how they were attracted to Krishna. We will also read text 14 today. Now we will hear about the birds. They also don't see Krishna. The gopis don't see Krishna, they don't see Krishna either. We will see. Text 14. Prayo Bhatampa Vihe-Bhaktivedanta Sb Sine Chitam Tat Uditam Kalave Nugitam Aruyaye Drumabujan Uchira Pravalan Shivan Kimilita Disho Vikatan Yavacha Vihara, the birds. Yes. Munaya, they are like great sages. Vane, great sages in the forest. Krishna Iksitam, what do they do in order to see Krishna? That they are to see Krishna and to hear the Kala Venu Gitam, the sweet vibrations of the flute. Druma Bhuja, they go up the branches of the trees and they go to the top of the trees. Why Shivanti? There they can hear. Milita Drisa, they are sitting on the top of the tree, closing their eyes, Vigata Anyavacha, and they don't hear any other sound. Translation. O Mother, in this forest, all the birds have risen unto the beautiful branches of the trees to see Krishna. With closed eyes they are simply listening in silence to the sweet vibrations of his flute, and they are not attracted by any other sound. Surely these birds are on the same level as great sages. So the birds are not birds. They are actually the greatest of munis, it is said here. Look at their activities. They act as munis. They adopt mauna vrata. They don't speak. And they sit on these branches high in the tree, on the top of the trees. And there they hear. And they sit silent, they don't move. You never see a bird sitting still. They are always jumping or whatever, but these sages, they don't. These birds don't move. Completely stunned. The purple. The birds resemble sages, because they live in the forest. Keep their eyes closed, observe silence, and remain motionless. Significantly, It is stated here that even great sages become maddened by the sound of Krishna's flute, which is a complete spiritual vibration. The word Ruchira Pravalam indicates that even the branches of the trees are transformed in ecstasy when struck by the vibration of Krishna's flute song. Indra, Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu, being primordial gods, travel throughout the universe and have extensive knowledge of the science of music. Yet even these great personalities have never heard or composed music like that which emanates from Krishna's flute. Indeed, the birds are so moved by the blissful sound that in their ecstasy they close their eyes and cling to the branches to avoid falling off the tree. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the gopis would sometimes address each other as Amba, mother. So, Sridhar Swami, he writes, "My dear mother, the birds who are in the forest must be sages. Why are they sages? Krishnekshitham, so that they may have the sight of Krishna without the interference of flowers, flutes, and so on, because the trees in their ecstasies, they are blossoming by hearing the sound of Krishna. So the birds do not want to have anything to block their vision of Krishna, so they move to the top of the trees. They went to the branches of the trees, which twigs are attractive, and they listened to the charming song, the flute, manifested by Sri Krishna. Out of happiness they kept their eyes closed, and they refrained from all other speech. In the same way, sages, in order to have sight of Krishna, climbed up to the high branches of the Vedas and give up the fruits of work described in the Vedas. They are assembling the charming twigs of the trees. They simply listen to the song of Krishna's flute, and thus were acting as sages with their eyes closed in the forest, meditating silently, climbing up to the top of the trees like sages climb up to the Vedas by realization. They gave up everything and they are just listening to the sounds of Krishna's flute. That was Sridhar Swami, now Sanatana Goswami, his comment on 14. The Sanatana Goswami writes, the translation by Bhanu Maharaj, "What to speak of the good fortune of the cows protected by Krishna, how can we describe the fortune of the birds in the forest? The majority of the birds are like this, but some, like the peacocks, are equal to the greatest devotees, with their dancing in prema, not sitting in the trees." Bhatta, the word bhatta, expresses astonishment. O mother, it's the nature of those immersed in prema to make such statements. Since no mother is present, they address their friends in this manner. So they address each other as mother, Mataji. Interesting. The birds climb on the branches of trees in order that they can see Krishna, or so that Krishna can see him. The branches have attractive buds which create an obstacle to seeing him, and they are the object of enjoyment. Seeing him, they listen to the song of his flute with half-closed eyes. This indicates lassitude because of intense prema. No words except the words of the flute are sensed by their minds, ears, or voice. Thus they are fortunate. An interpretation according to prema may also be given from the viewpoint of prema. The word ruchira also indicates that the buds have offered all activities to their Lord. The word praya indicates conjecture. Perhaps it is so. The word munayo refers to atmarams, like the Kumaras, who have become birds in the forest. So the four Kumaras became birds in the forest in order to see Krishna. They hear the sound of the flute, which they imagine in many ways, since they have never experienced the sound before, whose qualities are continually increased, uditam, by Krishna. This shows that the sound of the flute attracts them away from Brahma Samadhi. The sound of the flute attracts the universe. The sages have surpassed the branches of the Vedas, filled with various subdivisions. They have now given up the Vedas. Consciousness of their body has disappeared. Milita Drishi, closed vision. They are silent on all topics except Krishna. What else can they deliberate on? And that is Sanatan Goswami. Now we have Vishwanath. Vishwanath on verse 14. One Gopya replied, the cows who are dumb animals in material consciousness are only tasting material pleasures. On the other hand, the Atmaram Munis, fixed in transcendental knowledge and renunciation, cannot be disturbed by Krishna. This is what one gopi said, but then another gopi said, no, this is not true. Krishna also attracts the Munis with his sweetness. Oh, Bhatta, it is surprising, mother, Amba. Amba, mother, is an address to an intimate girlfriend used naturally by young ladies caught up in loving affection. It was used by young ladies. All these birds resemble Munis because they live in the forest, keep their eyes closed, observe silence, and remain motionless. Perched on the branches of the trees, they become ecstatic listening to the flute. Thus even great Munis become maddened by Krishna's flute, which is a completely spiritual vibration. Not only that, Saki, even the branches of the trees are transformed in ecstasy when struck by the vibration of Krishna's flute song and begin to sprout new leaves, Ruchira Pravalan, out of ecstasy. The sweet vibrations of his flute, Kala Venu Gitam, which agitates the whole universe, arises from Krishna alone, Taduditam, not from Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva or Indra. It is impossible for anyone else to produce such enchanting music. Indra, Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu, being primordial gods, travel throughout the universe and have extensive knowledge of the science of music, and yet even these great personalities have never heard or composed music like that which emanates from Krishna's flute. Indeed, Saki, the birds are so moved by the unique, blissful sound that in their ecstasy they close their eyes and cling to the branches to avoid falling off the trees. Due to being absorbed in the bliss of Krishna, they have given up all other talk, even the talk of Munis about Brahmananda. And now we have Shivaram's Venu Gita. Another girl with rosy cheeks, her complexion like cream, exclaimed, "We have described the glories of the cows protected by Sri Krishna, but now we comprehend the limits of good fortune achieved by the birds residing in the forest." All the ladies, young and old, turned away. "Which birds are you referring to, dearest?" inquired the mistress of the house, caressing her daughter's lovely face. Pointing to the great forest of Vrindavan and its many trees, she replied, "Prayabatampa Vibhaga, among all birds, dear mother. With the exception of the peacocks, cuckoos, and parrots, who are devotees of Sri Krishna and similar to the devotional arts of dancing and chanting, all the other birds seem like great munis." One of her friends took her elder's hand, her eyes smiling in a most enchanting way, and said in a childish voice, "We have all seen the prema nritya of the peacocks, who with their performance have glorified this planet up to Vaikuntha. There is certainly none there equal." "Then where do you see these birds, pretty girls?" inquired another gopi, just arrived on a household visit on bearing a great desire to see Nandanandan leaving for the forest. Pointing with excitement towards Vrindavan, Danya said, "Look at the trees, whose crooked branches are their innumerable hands. Just to see Krishna and hear the sound of his flute, many birds have climbed into those branches, and being very happy, they sit silently, their eyes closed tight. Just listen." Everyone there became attentive to the ensuing silence. Although at a great distance by the influence of Yoga Maya, the gopis perceived Vrindavan forest as if it were just nearby. The sound of the cows and the village faded away, and the only sound that remained was the rustling of the leaves in the trees. The usual chatter of forest birds was replaced by great stillness, which rolled across the meadows and plashed on the roof steps of Nandagon. Said an elderly lady, as she strained her eyes, "I do not see any birds on any tree branch. O daughter of the cows, what invisible things are you observing with your youthful eyes?" Laughing, some girls took the hand of their aunt and pulling her to the edge of the rooftop, excitedly said, "Arye, look at the twigs on the branches that are without flowers or fruit and decorated with soft center buds. It is there the birds sit, their eyes shut in meditation, squinting to screen out the glare of the late morning sun." A friend of Mother Yasoda, very expert in cooking tasty preparations for Krishna and Balaram, said, Yes, now I see them. The birds have truly climbed beyond the trees and are sitting motionless on the new sprouts, as if in mystic anticipation daughters, what is it they desire? Purnamasi, the all-knowing disciple of Narada Muni and the well-wisher of the inhabitants of Vraj, dressed in a snow-white sari, her face radiating with Brahminical goodness, spoke. Friends, these young girls are right. The colorful birds perched on the twigs are great sages who have come to hear the song of Krishna's flute and see him herd his cows through the forest. Today perfected jnanis like Sanaka and Sanat Kumar have become birds to gain the darshan of Krishna and Balaram. Overwhelmed by such august association, their mouths agape, gopis, young and old, offered their pranams to the birds, and turning towards each other said, "It is true, these birds must be sages. Look, they have climbed out of the hands-like branches of the trees, and moving further unto their beautiful finger-like twigs, they are attentively hearing the song of the flute." Purnamasi Devi continued. It is well known that Atmaram sages like Kumaras and Navayogendras are Nirvikar, free of all transformation, for they are unattached to the world of fruitive activity. Having achieved such perfection in the adopted form of birds, they now exhibit bewilderment occasioned by the sweet nectar from Govinda's flute. So this was about the cows. We heard the effect of the flute of the cows, the effect of the flutes of the birds. We heard about who are these cows, who are these birds. And we have heard about the demigoddesses in their airplanes. So these are all movable entities. But Krishna's flute has also effect on immovable entities. And we will hear of that tomorrow. Tomorrow we will discuss from verse 15 to 17. Any comments, questions? What do we learn from these sages of these cows? What can we learn from it? Yes. So please, Mother Sitaram.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I was thinking that we can look at this Venugit in two angles of vision. One being that Krishna's flute, how it impacts everyone and how different entities react in a different way. And we can also probably look in the way that the gopis situated on the highest platform actually see everything related to Krishna. Like, everybody is actually trying to serve Krishna. So even if they may not be. So we could see this Venugit in like with two angles of vision. That one is that everybody is actually trying to serve Krishna in Vrindavan, and one is that it's the vision of the gopis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this vision of the gopis is very elevated. They see, as you say, everything in relation to Krishna, but that's a vision of reality. They see reality. because everyone is related to Krishna, and everyone is serving Krishna. Some do it through the material energy, others through the spiritual energy. So they see, but it seems they see also the reality that these birds are sages. They have the capability to see that, who these persons really are. That is spiritual vision. That they could understand the position of these birds and these cows. That's interesting. So thank you. Any other comment?
I have another comment, Maharaj.
Yes.
I just want to actually check my understanding that Krishna's flute, it's not only affecting the devotees in Madhurya Rasa, it is actually affecting all the devotees in their particular rasa and intensifying that rasa.
Yes, that it affects everyone, but everyone has their sthai bhav. Sthai bhav is fixed relationship in one of the rasas, and that does not mean that they cannot experience other rasas. But yes, you see these demigods, in the airplanes, they are attracted by conjugal love. The cause is Vatsalya bhav. That the sages who have Brahman realization can say Santaras, but the four Kumaras, they became devotees. So Dasya Ras is certainly also there, that's included. Of course, it attracts especially those in conjugal ras in terms of intensity. The intensity is higher, more, but it affects all the entities. Even the trees and the branches start to sprout flowers and blossom. So that is, yes, it will not change our sthai bhav here in the flute. Interesting comment. Does that help to understand?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
So, Mother Lalita Priti Maya, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Yesterday also you said that the birds usually they do not be silent. They always chirp and they jump from one branch to another. So today morning when I was doing my japa on the terrace, so I was observing the movement of these birds. So I live like 4 kilometers inside to the town. So it's more like a natural place over here with a lot of trees and other varieties. So I see a lot of birds, cuckoos, sparrows, parrots, cranes, so many birds. And today morning I observed a baby kingfisher. It was sitting on the branch next to our house, and it was not sitting very silent. It was trying to find its food. It was chirping, and then it reminded me of what you said yesterday. The birds cannot sit quietly, but because of Krishna's flute, they are all sages, and so they just sit on meditate on Krishna's flute. And everything, what are the moving entities, they become still, and what are the non-moving entities, they start to flow. So I was remembering all these things, and when you said today that the cows, it just stopped drinking the milk from its mother's udder, So we have this experience like when we were kids, where there was some cartoon show going in the TV. We used to just keep our plate and the food with the spoon just sitting like this, and the mothers, they would scold that, why are you so much into the TV? Just have your food. So I was thinking, if a mundane thing could attract us so much, then what to tell about Krishna's flute, which is so divine. So I'm feeling like, what would that experience be? So these are all making me get more deeper into the pastimes of Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah, it's the one who is situated on the Uttama platform sees Krishna every moment. But there's no interest anymore in sense gratification, mundane things. That interesting. We heard as these cows, these birds, they forget themselves. It is said, and forgets oneself, and the focus, the mind becomes so focused. One forgets oneself. But, due to absorption. So that kind of absorption is samadhi, and that we are trying to achieve. But to achieve this samadhi is based on the development of desire, a desire to be with Krishna. And that desire was the greatest in the gopis. But all living entities in Goloka Vrindavan have that desire to serve Krishna. That because that is the only law in the spiritual world. The only law is always serving Krishna. That and the moods are different according to the moods of that service and the characteristics. One goes to a certain planet in Vaikuntha or to Goloka Vrindavan. But to Goloka Vrindavan, if conjugal love, as the gopis, can only be experienced in Goloka Vrindavan. This parakiya, which is the highest. That and also friendship where one forgets that Krishna is God and thinks Krishna is our equal, only in Goloka Vrindavan. Because that's more intense love. That brings more intense love. Because this only reference for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His greatness, His awareness of His Godhead, that is like an obstacle to give more love. And that obstacle is removed in Goloka Vrindavan. So therefore, these pastimes are very unique. But it can only be understood if you understood these Bprs rasas they have. And therefore, in the 10th canto we have first heard, we have heard before about parental love, Damodar pastimes and so on. And then the pastimes in the forest, Sakya ras. And now we are entering into the conjugal ras. But the conjugal ras can only really be understood if you are understanding the previous rasas, because it's accumulation. Because in the conjugal ras there is also parental ras included. There is Sakya ras included. And there is of course servitorship, Dasya ras included. But that's specific to Goloka Vrindavan. And therefore These persons are very unique. Good, thank you. Pavitra Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry for 2 days I've not been present in class. I lost my phone.
Okay. Happy to see you back.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, I wanted to ask, I just want to do a comparison in the Bhagavatam when Brahmadev came on, appeared before he went to the arena, the sacrificial arena of Bali Maharaj. Different demigods gave him some presentations like umbrella, Brahmana thread, the pot, all they were gifts to him. And I can also remember now I just wanted to ask, how do Krishna got his flute? Was it a man-made instrument or he got it as a present from any individual?
Well, where Krishna got his Vena flute, that's your question. Right? Yes.
Yeah.
It is said, because I don't have the reference, but I know I heard it, the story. And I must say, I don't understand the story myself, but what I heard in some of the Puranas, it is said that Brahma, before the appearance of Krishna, came to Nanda Maharaj and gave this flute to him, saying, yes, this is for your son, which will appear, that you give him this flute. And then after he was moved to, Krishna was moved from Mathura to Golok, and the first days Krishna was a baby. Then Nanda Maharaj gave him this flute and Krishna became attached to the flute. But I cannot confirm it. I cannot confirm that, but I definitely heard it in one of the presentations of the Bhaktivedanta. But the reference, if I get it, I will let you know. That's interesting.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Good. Then we are ready for tomorrow to hear the effect of the flute of the immovable living entities like the rivers and so on. Thank you very much. Jai Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.